You can now hear Movie Heaven, Movie Hell on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favourite shows, plus discover from 20,000 news, entertainment and sports shows. You can also create your own custom playlists. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad and in over 4 million car dashboards. It's on demand and it's on the go. No downloading, no syncing, no wasted memory. You can stream your favourite podcasts from Stitcher. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And please leave us a review and rating on Stitcher. Thank you. Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken, and
I'm Keith Eyles, and we are both independent filmmakers and movie enthusiasts who enjoy discussing the different aspects of the filmmaking craft. And for this podcast special, we're delighted to have got out of the office, and we have with us award-winning filmmaker Jane Gull. So welcome to the podcast, Jane.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Sorry, I'm in my pajamas.
Well, you know, it's all audio, so we're fine. So, for those who don't know, Jane's work, I've known Jane for a long time. I'm sure we'll get into that. But Jane's currently got the film My Feral Heart showing. We interviewed producer James Rumsey last year, but last week there was a screening for World Down Syndrome Day, and we had a bit of a Q&A, didn't we?
We did. Keith very kindly came along to the screening at Panton Street in Oxford Street, isn't it? And you done the Q&A, and we had a good old time, didn't we?
It was good. It was really weird actually, because obviously I've been to hundreds of Q&As, you know, as a as somebody watching them. So it was actually quite weird to be there actually moderating and hosting it. But of course, the next step is I want to be the person being interviewed for something that I've either made.
I think it worked really well because we know each other. I felt really relaxed, and actually my husband said that it was one of the best Q&As I've done.
Wow.
I think that's because we probably know each other.
It is funny that because when I had my film Blood and Roses shown at the Cornwall Film Festival, I actually had Jason Finn do the moderation with me, and it was a laugh because you're talking to somebody you know who knows you, so the questions are not there. You know, you have more of a conversation than somebody just saying, well, right, here's the usual questions you get asked every time.
Yeah. And we do. There's always questions that we get asked every time. You can always guarantee that. So we had a little chat beforehand, didn't we? And you told me the questions you were going to ask, and they were all fantastic.
Well, also the good thing was the audience asked loads of questions, because I had a load of them in reserve just in case there was that deadly silence. but the audience were really moved by the film and really did ask some good questions. But talking of asking the same questions, I guess for our listeners, you've got some notoriety now for My Feral Heart, and previously Sunny Boy, your short film got some attention.
Yeah.
But for the benefit of people listening, do you want to just give us a little bit of background on yourself, your work in the industry, etc.?
Yeah, wow. Where do I start? Well, so I began my career as a dancer. Went to dance college, left dance college after a year because the only lesson I really enjoyed was the drama class. So I left dance college to go to drama school, but I ended up working as a dancer because I went for an audition on one Saturday at Pineapple, just really to do a workout. I thought, well, I'll go along to the audition, and it's a free dance class. and I got the bloody job, didn't I?
Mm.
And then it was start. I had to go to Paris to rehearse, and then I ended up working as a dancer until I was 26. And then I went into choreography, and I was doing a lot of choreography for stage and film and all different things, as well as, and I'd always acted. I've always been acting since I was a kiddie. And then sort of got back into the acting, and that's when I met you.
It is, yes.
We met on a short film.
We did.
I was playing somebody who worked in a cab office, and you were playing a copper.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, nothing like being typecast. Yes.
But then, of course, when I hit 30 and the parts sort of, dried, the few parts I had were then drying up. And actually, to be honest with you, I can actually remember the day when I thought, I really am not enjoying this anymore. I went up to Birmingham to do a horror film. And I just absolutely hated it. And the director, oh dear, and I just remember just thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm fed up with it.
Okay.
So that's when I really started sort of focusing on directing.
Mm-hmm.
And I still enjoy acting, and I still do the odd gig if it comes up, if it's for a friend, or theatre. I absolutely love theatre, but I really got the bug for directing now. I haven't looked back.
Can I just ask, because you said you were involved in choreography and acting, what do you find? Do you find that when you come to directing, do you come from your choreography side or from your acting side?
I think it's a combination of both. And what I will say is I actually think that the choreography has really, really helped. Because when I was doing choreography, one of the first films that I choreographed was a film called Suave Bastard, which was produced by Stuart Finnegan, who's gone on to produce Moon and Source Code and lots of wonderful films. So I worked on his first short film. I actually worked on his first feature film as an actress as well. But that, I think, doing choreography for film, you're working with the camera department, you're working with the actors. It's all about visuals, it's about framing. So having that experience and the acting experience, it was really, really, has helped with directing completely.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And you've done some producing as well, because I know we've worked on some projects together as well way back, didn't we? Yeah.
I produced produced a few short films, one called Existence, which was funded by the Film Council, which you worked on.
Yes.
And I've also done lots of producing for theatre and also for the BBC. I worked for BBC Blast for 3 years as a freelance producer, events organiser. So I think that, again, that's really helped with directing, especially like for My Feral Heart. Knowing what's involved and the realities and the limitations and things. So I think that has really helped. I definitely don't want to produce. I think you have to be a certain person to want to be a producer. But of course I would always muck in and produce to get my own films off the ground, but I would be very reluctant to produce anything for anybody else.
Right.
Yeah, it's very rare to find a person who just wants to produce. I think all three of us here have produced our own films because we had to. Because we couldn't find somebody who was willing to sort of jump on board and help. So if you want something made, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I've always thought that, I've said many a time on our podcast, I think that's the key to a successful independent film director is the producing partner, and, we've cited a lot of our heroes over the years. In a lot of cases, that they had a producing partner, sometimes an actual partner, that definitely helped with their success. And I think that's...
Well, no, just from a practical point of view, because when you're on set filming, you can't. It's much harder on a feature film than say a short to have wearing loads of hats, because you need somebody to take care of the producing side. I mean, this was a lesson. Luckily, I discovered before filming, so that I was able to get a line producer on board who took care of the producing side. So at the end of the day, when we finished like a long day, I didn't then have to worry about doing call sheets for the next day to say what time we were starting, things like that, or making sure that everything was in place for the next day's filming. So it always helps. I mean, there's there are exceptions to the rules, but it helps when a project gets. It's fine when you say a project gets bigger, but a feature film is such a more massive undertaking than a short film, because a short film you're filming for maybe a week max, and so it's a short amount of time, so you can do that. But when it's a feature film, you're going to be filming at least 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it's just the toll of doing filming, and it's such an intense time,
But it's not even just the filming. I think that's the thing that people forget, don't they? It's everything else. Actually, though, the 3 weeks of filming is the easy part. It's everything that comes after. I mean, if you look at My Feral Heart now, we're like 2 years down the line from actual filming.
Yeah.
And I'm sure James told you, all the work that's involved even to this moment now.
Oh yeah, I mean, my own feature film we wrapped in 2007 and we didn't finish until 2009. So yeah, it was 2 years in post production.
Yeah. I think time flies by.
It does, and I think that's what it is like. Really, it is like having a child. That's the thing. Even if it's like your baby, and you've got to still be there for it, even if people aren't, the parents split up or whatever, you've still got that child there that you've got to manage.
Yes.
And the longevity of it, even with short films. I mean, my short film Sunny Boy, which we shot in 2011. I mean, this week, on Friday, I'm going to Dresden. We've got 3 screenings there at the Dresden Film Festival, and I'm doing a panel discussion because the film's now part of a DVD, and still doing quite well.
Congratulations. Because most short films, they have like a short shelf life. I mean, they do the festival circuit, and then they just sort of end up on YouTube or Vimeo.
Yeah, and that's another thing, because we were the producer of Sunny Boy is Emma Curtis, who's a very dear friend of mine now, but she's actually an animator.
Right. So
she'd produced her own things, but this was the first sort of independent thing she'd produced. And she, after it had done, a couple of years at the festivals, people were saying to her, put it on YouTube so people can see it, we want to see it. And she was like really adamant, no, because I still think there's something more in the bag here. And I'm so glad that she stuck to her guns, because Channel 4 then picked it up, Arte TV picked it up, it's part of this DVD thing. And then, we're still doing stuff and it's still out there.
Fabulous. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably quite a good point. So take us on the journey then to Feral Heart. So, your journey as a filmmaker, obviously you've made some short films. Sunny Boy was the one that got you some attention. Just sort of talk us through the journey and how you felt, how you found My Feral Heart and where it went from there.
Yeah, so Sunny Boy was in 2011, and that sort of, done really well in festivals and won lots of awards, and was just really a joyous experience all round, really. Darren Kent, who's the lead actor in it, really close friend of mine, and then Lewis Nicholas, my husband, was the other actor in it, and then Emma. So just the whole thing about Sunny Boy was just really probably, just holds a really dear place in my heart. And then following on from then, I've done a couple of other sort of like little short... Oh no, actually, a big mistake that I made was we shot Sunny Boy in July, the hottest summer of the year. And then in August, I was shooting my next short film, which I was also producing, Hitler and Henry VIII. That was very big. I learnt a lesson there. That was a huge mistake, to go from like shooting one in June to one in July. One in July and one in August. It was too rushed. There was too much going on. Also, it was the first time that I had directed something that I hadn't written. So that was an interesting dynamic, because usually I'm very like organic and, we're just like, oh, change this, change that. The writer was on set. Not that that was a huge problem. He was, lovely. But you feel this sort of, I don't know, it was just a weird dynamic, but I'm actually glad that happened, because I think that sort of then equipped me for when going on to do My Feral Heart, which of course I didn't write.
But the thing is it a case of because you didn't write it, or was it because they were so close together?
I think it's probably both.
Okay.
And they were too close together, and there was Hitler and Henry was, a logistic nightmare, because we only had 2 days and it was in a school, and we had guns and all sorts, and it was the ball days, the day, it was in the summer holidays, but it was the day all the kids were picking up their GCSE results.
Brilliant.
So it was quite intense. And I would do a lot of things differently.
Yeah. No,
it's part of, you learn, don't you?
Yeah,
You've got to make mistakes.
No, I asked because I had a similar experience where I shot 2 short films back to back, one which I was heavily involved in, and another one which I wasn't heavily involved in. And of course, they were literally just like back to back month wise, and of course the first one really good, and the second one it was all right, but but yeah. It's I don't know. It is thing though where the subject matter was, it was a comedy short, and it was dealing with late night poker, and they were playing with like crisps instead of chips. That was the whole joke. So it's hard to say if quality wise, if it was because of filming back to back, or if it was the actual script itself. But I did feel somewhat that I didn't give it my all. But I can't say if that was because it was so close together, or if it was the fact that the subject matter was, somebody else's pet project and wasn't mine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't do that again. And then after that, I done a couple of other little shorts and started writing my feature script solo. That's like a real passion project that I've been working on for quite a while. Then I made another short film called Twitcher, which was a short film that I sort of wrote over Christmas, and we shot that in the April. Again, Darren was in it, lead actor from Sunny Boy. Lewis produced it, so it's all keeping it in the family, and the same editor, and the same people, and Susie shot that one, cinematographer. And then what happened was then I met Duncan, the writer of My Feral Heart, through a mutual friend. He mentioned this idea about My Feral Heart, and at this stage he hadn't got a script, he just had an idea. And we were going to actually apply to iFeatures. Okay. So I was applying to iFeatures with My Feral Heart and another project called My Loving Blood, written by Judy Upton. And then for various reasons we didn't end up submitting My Feral Heart, but My Loving Blood, I realise that the titles are quite similar. My Loving Blood got longlisted for iFeatures. Unfortunately we didn't get shortlisted, and then that still hasn't been made. And then I don't know really what happened, but then Duncan came back with a script, and then about 18 months later we were back and forth. Looked for the cast. So this time 3 years ago we were casting, because I thought it was really important to get the cast. We needed to find the right actors. And then James came on board in the July, and then we shot it in the November.
So at the script phase, was it always the case that the lead actor was going to have Down syndrome?
There was always a character that had Downs, but you're right. The first draft of the script that Duncan sent me, the character of Pete was the main character.
That's
and he was sort of
the young lad who's doing
the Hunt Saboteur.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was sort of like looking back at his. I can't even remember now. It was so long ago, but yeah, he was the lead character. But then we decided to go making it Luke the main character. That was a lot more interesting.
Excellent. And I know we touched on this in the Q&A, but that's not recorded. So let's go back there. There's quite an interesting story about finding the cast for this. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we went through the usual channels through Spotlight actually, and didn't have a casting director on board. Just I signed up and done it myself and got them all through, and made sure that I looked through every single actor that came through. For the character of Luke, we had about 70 people put forward, some by them directly through themselves, some via agents, but actually only 3 of them actually had Downs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were great, but wanted to sort of look further afield. So we ended up just reaching out to sort of people we knew and to different organisations, and then actually Stephen, who we ended up casting, I actually met him at a theatre group called Mushroom Theatre Company, which is run by a lady called Penny Bubb, who I used to go to dance college with. And I went there initially looking just for some of the smaller parts, like the guys in the care home. And then Stephen was there. And we got on really well and he was really great. But then found out that he doesn't actually take part in any of the productions there because he gets stage fright. And he'd never done any acting on screen before. So, but, I just... you know what it's like when you meet somebody and you work with them and you do workshops and and it's not I can't stand auditions where like you've got people sat at a desk. I mean, I like to be up on my feet and I film the actual auditions myself, so I'll be running around with the camera. I can't bear this sort of like sitting behind a desk, this barrier. I know what it was like as an actor going to auditions. So I try. I mean, I don't know, people might tell you differently if they've auditioned for me. They might not like it, but I try to make it an environment that I would like to, be in if I was at an audition.
Yeah. No, I think I've changed the way I audition people because I did do that, especially with the feature. But I always had an actor there so that they had somebody to act with instead of it being just somebody who's just coldly reading the lines. But there was, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. It was a long. It's nearly 10 years ago since I did that. But I tend to meet people more now and see what they're like as people and through recommendations and stuff. I mean, I haven't really auditioned that many people for what I'm currently doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there isn't a right or wrong way. It's just whatever works. But what I'm quite interested in is Stephen Brandon, isn't it, who plays Luke in the film, and he's getting a lot of acclaim for this role, and he is very engaging in it. How much of Stephen do you think is in Luke, or how much of it is the character?
Well, I always think there's an element of every actor in a character. When I met Stephen and, done a lot of workshops with him, I was looking at traits of his personality that we could then bring into the character. But that's something that I like to do anyway. I'm even thinking now, this script that I'm writing, I'm going to be casting the lead actors before I do a lot of, the nuances and all those things to bring, to find those little gems and to bring out those things that actor can bring to it that nobody else can. I think the character of Luke, obviously Stephen is playing the part of Luke, and there's lots of things that Luke does that Stephen wouldn't do, but there are elements of Stephen, things that Stephen does that are in the character.
I mean, because there are some really nice moments in the film that you captured. I just wondered, was everything scripted and planned, or was there a bit of improvisation that went on?
Things were put into the script that we developed through rehearsals. For example, like Stephen, when he's smoking a cigarette, that was one of the first things. Mine smoking a cigarette. That was one of the first things that Stephen done. When I got up with him and I acted out a scene with him in a workshop, he just looked at me and just started to pretend to smoke and blowing smoke in my face. So we put that in there. Most of the dialogue scenes between him and Pete, they're all scripted, and the word for words, everything is scripted to a degree, but there's definitely like room for improvisation and all those little moments. But yeah, the script was pretty tight. Everything that's in the script, that was in the script, is in the film. There was only one scene that we cut, and that was not because it wasn't good, it was because it didn't really work with the story. And then there was little bits that were embellished. But I love improvisation anyway. I mean, I went to Anna Shares, which is notorious for improvisation, so I think I'll always bring that to my work.
Yeah, no, sure. And obviously, while we're talking about Stephen, it's very important that we note that he has recently won an award, right?
Yeah, he won the National Film Awards last week.
Fantastic.
I know, amazing. Up against heavyweight actors, Ewan McGregor, Daniel Radcliffe, Michael Fassbender. But
Wow.
He deserved to win, and it was a public vote. I think they had over 3 million votes for the awards in total.
Oh well, congratulations to Stephen for that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Brilliant.
That's another accolade for the film, and of course, Mark Kermode has said a lot of good things about the film as well, hasn't he? So it's getting a lot of.
I think you get a mention every week.
Yeah, we got a little mention on Friday.
Yes,
which is nice. That was a lovely surprise. So,
I was wondering. I mean, did he just turn up to like a press screening, or did you send it to Mark Kermode? I'm just curious, because I think most filmmakers are like, well, I want to get it to the press, but I don't know how. Or
right. Well, we had the screenings through our screen, so we had the independent screening, but because we had those and we had those screenings in cinemas, we then got reviews, because you can't really get reviews unless you've got the film out there.
I've had dealings with Total Film. They won't touch a film unless it has a release
because
date.
Unless they've got something to promote, they're not, otherwise what's the point of having it reviewed if then people are going to contact them and say, well, there's no way you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So by having those screenings, we then obviously got the reviews. And some of them were very nice.
Some of them.
We don't talk about it bad. No, there wasn't any bad.
Fair enough. But, so, I mean, we did talk with James in some detail about the actual production itself. But I think what's probably more interesting is, like you were saying, the beyond the production. So, talk us a bit through the process that's happened since you made the film to actually get to this stage, because it's frightening to think it's been 2 years. That's kind of scary that it's taken this long. Any particular reason?
Well, I don't think it's really that long, really. It does feel a long time, doesn't it? I suppose it is. But yeah, so this time last year we had our world premiere,
right,
at CineQuest, and then in June we went to Edinburgh, and then I went to Singapore and Russia and America and lots of other places, that took us through to November, and then November we had the cinema release, and that was only supposed to be for 5 weeks, I think, 5 or 6 weeks, but ended up being 5 months. We were only supposed to have 10 screenings, and we ended up having over 120.
Wow.
Which is great. And that sort of brings us up to now. And then we had World Down Syndrome Day, which was obviously our charity screenings, one where you very kindly done the Q&A for us. So we had 35 screenings on one night all around the country. At the moment, the films, you can see the film in Australia. I can't remember the name of the thing. But there's like an House fan force in Australia. Sorry, I can't remember.
The Australian version.
The Australian version of Our Screen.
Yeah.
that's over there. But, you know, we're still trying to secure distribution, as in, you know, TV, DVD. I mean, we're constantly, I'm not kidding you, every day getting emails or messages on our Facebook page. Where can we get the DVD? Where can we see it? So that's all still in talks at the moment, which, you know, if you were doing a bigger project that already, you know, you'd have all that in place in the beginning, of course, if you had the
if you had the studio behind
if you had the studio behind it, whereas we sort of done it the other way around. But I'm you know, hopefully somebody will pick it up.
Well,
There's
be something wrong if they didn't.
Yeah, there's definitely people that want. Yeah, as I said, there's lots of people that do want to see it that couldn't get to see it.
That is kind of interesting, actually. What you touch on there is the fact that this is what's so funny about this industry. Sometimes is if you've got a product to sell, you know, so you've got a film that's an interesting topic that's had good reviews that you're now looking for distribution for. But sometimes, if those particular distributors hadn't been involved in the actual development of the film from the get-go, you know, is there some reluctance to take it on for that reason, do you think? Just because they weren't behind it from the very start?
Yeah, possibly. I think it is chicken and egg, possibly. And I think the other thing is there's so many films out there, and if you've already got your own bunch of films that you've been developing from, like you said, hatched from the beginning, and you're trying to get them up there, it's, you know, to then bring somebody else, you know, another project on, you know, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah,
I understand that.
My experience was that I had a lot of companies did get in touch with me, but I was very protective of it. So if they, you know, I would check them out, I'd look at the website and stuff, and if it didn't look professional to me, then I was like, didn't want to know. It was like, nope, because I wanted sort of the best for it. I wanted, you know, a company that would take it on and maybe sort of get it out there as more as possible, because there are a lot of smaller distributors who, you know, but there were distributors I never heard of, and you'd look at their back catalogue and there were films I'd never heard of, and that's why in the end, you know, I didn't have a distributor for my film. That's why it sort of had to come down to self-distribution.
So I don't think, if you've got the manpower to do that, I don't think it's such a bad thing. And actually, I've been, you know, hearing from quite a few people that have self-distributed, who've had, you know, one film maybe that was self-distributed and one that wasn't, and actually the one that they distributed themselves seems to have done.
Well, I think find that it's one of those things where if you self-distribute it, there's the money comes to you, but you may not have a budget to sort of advertise it, to market it. Well, a distributor, if they're 100% behind the project, will do the marketing, but then you may never see a penny from it.
I think that's the thing. I mean, you realise, you know, because when we finished shooting, we didn't have a budget as such for marketing and publicity. You realise how important that is. And I think, yeah, you can't, that has to be, you have to really think about that before. Because it's no good having this film if, you know, you've not got the means to get it out there to be seen. I mean, thankfully, this is where social media does play a huge part for our independent films. If it wasn't for social media, for Facebook and Twitter, you know, we wouldn't be able to get a word out there.
Yeah.
No, I mean, people must be absolutely sick of reading about my film. I apologise. I mean, it's been, yeah.
But I mean, that part with, you know, I mean, I have my issues with social media.
Yeah, me too.
I agree with you in terms of for promoting something like a film or an event or some sort of project. You know, it's very important. But I'm guessing that's almost like a full-time job in itself, right? Is managing that. I mean, I've seen people who, in fact, I've been involved in films that have had crowdfunding campaigns that I've donated to, and you literally get like emails on a daily basis, from this, and with interesting content. But you think, wow, that there's a lot of work that needs to go into that, let alone making the movie. It's like,
no, it is. You're right. That it is a full-time job, isn't it? The social media and just doing all of that. And I think actually talking about the crowdfunding, that is something people are very quick to do these crowdfunding things with all these promises of
deliverables
and things.
Yeah.
But someone has to manage that. Somebody has to do that. If you're saying you're going to be sending out posters to people, signed posters, you've got to get those posters made. You've got to get them signed and sent. I mean, it's all those things.
Yeah.
I think that is one thing I think a lot of filmmakers don't budget for. I'd say they say, well, I need 60 grand to make my film, so if you put money into my film, you'll get this and this. Well, you're spending the 60 grand on making the film, but how much money you put aside for the DVDs or the posters and stuff?
You need to in your budget for whether it be those things or just indeed marketing and promoting the film, you need to have line items in there. I mean, it used to be the case that people would put all the money into the production and then leave nothing for post. And I think, people have kind of wised up to that now, and obviously that's got easier and less expensive. But exactly, the next stage now is, producers, filmmakers independently don't put those line items in for things such as the promotion or the perks that go with the crowdfunding, etc. So it's an ever-changing thing.
I think it depends on what the perks are, because some people do perks where it's just it's pie in the sky. It's like, well, how are you going to deliver this? I always love the ones where come on set, have your photo, spend the day on the set,
be an extra.
No, hang out with the lead actor. I'm like, really? They're not going to be acting then, obviously. But I mean,
give them a foot.
And then the other thing is like film festivals. The travel and all these things.
Just the cost of entry.
Well, don't get me started. I mean, there are.
I know you say don't get me started, but let's talk about that side of things, because I mean, with this. Did you? I mean, there are so many different routes you can go when you've got a project, right? One, obviously you've got to get it made, which is a big task. We all know that, and I think most of our listeners understand that. But there are different routes to getting it out there and getting distribution, and obviously the festival circuit is one of them. And where do you stand with that? I mean, is that something you've pursued?
Yeah, I mean, I think film festivals are great. I really do. For short, if you we start with short films. For short films, they are great. But I think the problem is there are so many film festivals now. I mean, horror film festivals. If you made a horror short film, and there's practically a festival every day, I think. So it's working out with, having a strategy, aim for the top and work, and be realistic as well. I think you've got to be realistic. If you've got a short film or a feature film, thinking about where it's going to, finding a place for it. Some of the short film festivals that I think are doing things really well in this country are, I don't know if you've heard them, Triforce, Lift Off.
Yeah, I've heard of
both of those festivals for me have been brilliant. They've championed my short films, but not only that, they've continued to support and have communication, and they've just been absolutely brilliant. And interestingly, both Lift Off and Triforce are both run by actors. I mean, James and Ben, who run Lift Off, were actors, and the guys at Triforce were all actors. And I just think they're doing brilliant things, and I guarantee that both of those companies or festivals and organisations will go on and on and on, because they're actually
they're about the films rather than about profit and commerce and
who's in it and stuff like that. But then I think all three of us have had film festivals where they we've stayed in contact with and had our work shown and stuff like that. I mean, even, you know, with James Rumsey in Feast on Film. I mean, if we ever had a new film, he was always, you know.
Well, that's how this kind of came to be, almost, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, because I met James through you, didn't I, Keith?
Because you put Sunny Boy into Feast on Film, right?
Yeah.
I've already wound James up on this, saying, "Where's my credit? Where's my cut? You know, where's my finder's fee? Damn it! No, it's all good." No, karma. It's going to come around, right? Yeah. So that's a good festival. But have you tried with this festivals, or have you not?
My Feral Heart?
Yes.
Yeah. So Feral Heart's been in Edinburgh and
Right.
CineQuest and Liftoff. We won.
Right.
We won.
Go on, yeah, I mean, big
We
it up,
won
that's the whole
Liftoff.
point.
Yes, we won best film, I won best director, and
Yay.
Stephen won best actor at Liftoff, which was great. And as I said, they've been really supportive. But I think, you know, festivals are great. I think the problem is there are some that you have to be careful of.
Yeah.
You know, like with it in any industry, there's always going to be people that are trying to scam you. I mean, we had an incident where we'd submitted the film for a festival and paid, you know, quite a handsome fee to submit. Then got told we'd got nominated for all these awards, but we had to pay to go to the award ceremony.
Yeah.
And very expensive, the tickets were too. We didn't go. So I think you just have to be a bit careful, because there are so many festivals, but they're great. They're a great place to like watch other films, meet filmmakers, as you guys know.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, film festivals is a lot of is sometimes the only place we all actually see, you know, short films or feature films on a big screen
With an audience.
With an audience. Yeah.
The other thing as well is there are some festivals that you go to, like the smaller festivals, and you get, you know, treated brilliantly as filmmakers. But I think I have been to some where I think the way that they, you know, you don't even get a hello, or you're not even, and you think, Christ, I've come all this way. And, you know, at least you could show a bit of enthusiasm or get the title of the film right.
Yeah. Or the aspect ratio.
I went to one film festival where the film actually had the copyright across the middle of the screen, and it was throughout the whole film, and they still showed it.
Actually, the festival that I'm going to this weekend is one of the best festivals I've ever been to. I went there to the Dresden Film Festival 3 years ago, and absolutely fantastic. And I'm so looking forward to going again. Their communication is brilliant. You know, I'm getting emails saying what time you're going to be picked up at the, you know, at the airport. Everything's organised, and just absolutely great. And the quality of the film, I think they have 34 films in competition there, international films. When I went last time, the quality of the film was the best shorts I've ever seen. And the projection was wonderful, and great venues, and the audiences are packed, and they're packed of local people, literally queuing to come and watch short films. Because quite often, you know, you go to festivals and it's just other filmmakers, but no, this is the German public wanting to see short films. So I'm really looking forward to it.
We've seen the Saturday Night Live sketch with Emily Blunt. It's like, could the that was a great short film. So could the filmmakers come up, and the whole audience comes up. So do we have a question?
Indeed. No, absolutely. That happens. So, you know, it's going really well with My Feral Heart in terms of it's getting some good reviews, some awards, it's getting a lot of buzz. Okay, you might not have a distribution deal in place just yet, but I mean, you know, what's it really like? Because our perception is that you've like now made it. You know, this is it. You've had a hit film. What's next on the horizon? But what is the current situation?
Think of it like this, Keith. It's like a beautiful swan gliding along the river, but then underneath you're like paddling like mad, trying to keep afloat, trying to survive. I mean, I'm thrilled with the way My Feral Heart's been, the people where they've taken to it, and the great reviews that we've had, and obviously the awards that we've won, and all of that jazz. It's lovely, and you always make something, don't you, to try and you want it to be the best it can be, but you never really know how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
You sort of get a bit of an idea, but you never really know how people are gonna embrace it. But then I think for me personally, this is my personality. Whatever I'm doing, I'm never really looking at the moment. I'm always thinking, what's next? And I'm always my goal was to make a short film. Then my goal was to make a short film, to, I don't know, win an award. And then it was like to make a feature film. And now my goal is to make my second feature film. So you're always thinking bigger. And I think I'd imagine that's the same for anybody. Even if you win a BAFTA, you're probably thinking, I've got a BAFTA, but I won an Oscar.
Yeah, I think it is probably the nature of a lot of creative people is you never feel that you're quite there. You're always looking for the next thing.
Yeah, because you're never really there. Where is there?
Yeah. I was at a Q&A recently for a film that it was a horror film with Brian Cox, and it's got distribution in the
Autopsy of Jane Gull?
Yeah,
and that's from the guy who made Troll Hunt.
Exactly.
Which was like the #1 blockbuster in Norway.
Exactly.
And yet it took him years to make another film.
Well, what was interesting was he was there in the Q&A, and it was mentioned that one of his contemporaries, one of his colleagues from Scandinavia, was making the next Lara Croft Tomb Raider film, which is starring Alicia Vikander, I think.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because he said, yes, I'm very jealous. I'd love to be making the next Lara Croft Tomb Raider film. And I was thinking, that's interesting because us in the audience are there thinking, oh, we wish we just made this film and was doing this. So I think it is probably like that you never really feel quite there.
And I think for me, I just want to be creative, and I like to be in that creative bubble. The bit that I find, and I'll be honest with you, the bit that I find the most difficult and I'm the least comfortable with actually is all of this shenanigans, like all this sort of like talking about the film and talking about, people are asking you about the production that you made 2 years ago, and the soirees and all of this business. It's all lovely, but actually I'm happiest when I've got my sleeves rolled up and I'm sort of getting down and dirty with the creativity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
And also being with like-minded people. I'm really, I've got a lot of friends that I've had for years, probably like a lot of us have, but I really am about, it's about finding your tribe, I think, and sticking with them and loving them and just finding the people you can just be yourself with. I'm not good being around people that I don't feel like I can be myself around, and unfortunately there's quite a few people that but hey, that's the nature of the beast. But as going back to your question, really I'm very, very happy with the way My Feral Heart's gone, and I just hope that I can go on to make something else very soon.
Well, I mean, for someone who's known you for 15 years or more, whatever
Probably
it is
longer,
now.
Actually. I was 28 when we met.
Exactly. I for one am delighted that you're having some success with this, which will hopefully lead on to the next thing for you. So what is the next thing? Let's talk about that.
Well, there's nothing concrete, nothing's in stone, of course. Wouldn't be that easy. But I've got various projects in development, hasn't everybody? No, I've got a couple of projects that I've been working on for a long time, actually, before My Feral Heart. I've got a project called Solo, which is a project that I'm co-writing with a writer called Daniel Hayes, who I met making my first ever short film, which was Together Alone, which was funded by Screen East and the Film Council back in 2004. and met Daniel there. And he's always been really supportive of all my work, and he's often worked as like a script advisor and on stuff. So yeah, that's the project that's about sexual exploitation. So yeah, so that's in script stage, and then I've got another project called Love Without Walls, which is about homelessness, and then another project called Changing Track, which has been written by Kerry Bernstein, and that's also about homelessness, but it's a very different story. It's about teenage homelessness. And then I've got some other scripts that have been sent to me, and then Duncan from My For a Heart, he's writing a new script, but I haven't made that yet. So yeah, hopefully one of those will get made at some point.
What are your thoughts on the whole funding process?
Yeah, I mean, it's a minefield. I really can't tell you my thoughts on it because it's just so involved, and I think I've learned so much from doing My Feral Heart. Just how the whole machine operates. And I don't think there is any really there's no set rules. I think you've got to sort of find your way.
And what about, you said you've been approached about some projects. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, just people that have seen My Feral Heart and seen my short films, and that have, come to me and, sent me scripts and talking about things. But you know what it's like, nothing's ever, until you're actually there on set filming. I always take everything sort of in my stride. Just keep plugging, keep working.
What? Nobody sends you any scripts, Keith?
No, strangely enough, this is the thing you say about different stages. It's like, oh, I'd love to get to that stage.
I still get sent. Well, I don't get sent scripts, but I get sent a synopsis asking if I'm interested. But I just know that I'm not in a position where I could do that script justice, or it's anything that kind of appeals to me. I don't want to start something that I know that with somebody where it may not happen.
The other thing I'm getting at the moment is quite a few emails and things from people asking for advice, and I'm like, I'm still trying to work it out myself. I can't, give advice. But actually, on a serious note, the main thing is I'm trying to earn a living.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that's really hit me making this film. I've always, since leaving school, I've always worked, in the arts, whether it's producing, dancing, choreography, acting, whatever. But I would say these last 2 years have been really tough from a financial point of view, trying to do this and work, and just things are changing. A lot of the companies that I used to work for as a freelancer, the people that that employed me have left the company, and new people have come in, and it's trying to juggle and balance, trying to survive and do this. I mean, that's why I couldn't do it again like this, like how we done My Feral Heart. I mean, this is one time. I can't do it like that again.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing that it's something that you love to do, but you can't make a living off it. It's, I mean, that's the hard thing. That's the trick, is how to make films and also live.
Especially as a director or a producer, probably even more so. But when I teach, quite often the students and teaching filmmaking, everybody wants to be a director, and or I'm saying, unless you really want to do it, do something else, because I think if you're a cinematographer or a sound recordist, you'll always be working. You can do your stint on the film and then go off, but as a producer or director, you're still, especially at this level, you're still, as a director, still help, doing all the stuff. Whereas,
well, I think of any film, even if it's a studio film, you're going to be with it a year
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah.
And of course, then it's...
Then you're getting paid.
I don't think you get paid for the year.
And acting, I mean, I know you sort of said, you do it if it's sort of friends offered you a part or something, but I mean, have you lost the passion for that?
For me, I just couldn't stand all the auditioning and just not not going up for good parts, and and if you haven't got, it's a vicious circle. There's so many gatekeepers, I feel, in this country. I don't know if it's like that in every country, but if you're not with one of the agents, and I think that's probably not just for actors, it's probably directors and all sorts, really.
If you're not with the top couple 5 maybe or whatever, then you don't really get a look in. And
I just think everyone has to start somewhere. Everybody has to have their first break. For example, My Feral Heart, we haven't got any sort of huge stars in it, although we've got some very established actors in it and up and coming actors. But I've had people say to me, "Your next film, Jane, you've got to have a name in it so that you can sell it, so that people pick it up." Which I find, I understand what they're saying, but I find that quite soul destroying. But I also feel that unless the person is right for the part, then they cannot play the part.
Again, that's a bit of a vicious circle, like you said, because it's all about money and what sells and who sells, but at the same time it's very narrow and one of the things I've noticed, I think it's always been the case, but it seems to be even more now, is I often joke about the lucky 1,000, in terms of actors and people above the line, the creatives.
Oh, even below the line.
And
below the line. There's the same people who work on all the productions. It's very hard to get into the top productions.
But I think what's really changed now is where there used to be a bit of a line between theatre, film, television, commercials, etc. That seems to have blurred as well now. So you get the people who are established and get to work in all those fields. And I mean, the one that springs to mind right now, just because I only saw it yesterday, is obviously Tom Hardy, who obviously has had for the last decade or so a very successful film career and some theatrical productions. But this year, 2017, he's had a television show that he's been the lead on, and I saw him yesterday on the commercial for Sky mobile that they're doing. So it's like it's like, oh wow, it's brilliant when you get in. You're in,
but he had to start somewhere. He had to be given his first break.
Exactly.
I mean, I watched Black Hawk Down the other day, and of course he is in it, but it's unrecognisable, really. I mean, unless you knew who he was just another soldier amongst all the other soldiers there.
And but if I'm watching a film, I like to be completely immersed in that character. If I start coming out of the character and think, "Oh, I'm watching an actor," I'm taken out of it at all. So sometimes I actually prefer it. I like to watch something where it's a complete unknown that I've never seen before, rather than.
I know what you mean. I kind of enjoy that when I watch, if you like, foreign films sometimes, because if you're not that familiar, I mean, yes, of course there are stars, in those, but sometimes if you're not that familiar with them, you really don't know where the film's going to go, because you don't know who's going to be the hero, who's going to be the villain, or whatever, or the shade of grey in between. But it's always interesting. But
I think casting's so important. I think
it's very important.
It really, and I think actually
you have one weak link, and it can ruin a film.
And I think that's where a lot of independent films go, and student films go wrong. If you've got and not giving the actors enough time, like spending so long lighting and choosing, setting up the shot, which is all well and wonderful. But then if you're expecting the actors to just, perform in one take, and at the end of the day, when you're sitting there watching a film, you're looking at the actors, and if the actors aren't believable, then you've lost your audience. Actors and story, I think, are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And just having the respect. I mean, there was a group of film students that I met a couple of weeks ago. They were doing their graduation film, and I was very disappointed in the way they were talking about actors, actors that are giving up their time working for nothing. Their sort of attitude was, they're doing it for nothing, so not quite sure if they're going to be any good, or just this sort of.
I knew I'd get you going. This is good.
And I think that's another thing that really winds me up.
I had my film shown at the University of Hertfordshire, and none of the film students actually turned up to watch it. People who did turn up to watch it had great Q&A. It was probably longer than the film, because then you have like a one-to-one conversation. But it was just like, I'm a filmmaker, made a short film. I'm like you guys, and you couldn't be bothered. And that was really disheartening. And I know you've told me stories about your students who really couldn't be asked to be there to tell the truth.
You've got to.
But
you said earlier, if you want to be in this industry, you've got to be asked, because even if you are asked, it might not even happen. That's. I'm looking at myself in the mirror saying that, but it's.
Well, I look at it this way though: less competition. If the generations that are coming up behind us are not that interested, and that means that there's going to be less competition for us.
Interesting choice of word, competition. I feel, I don't know how you guys feel, that there is this competitiveness. I do feel this competitiveness, and I think that's healthy.
Do you think it's healthy, or you don't?
I don't think it's healthy. I don't think people should be judging, comparing themselves against other people.
Right.
I think that's where we run into problems.
I think it's human nature to a certain extent, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I think about I'm not trying to steer this into a rant about the industry, I promise. But one of the things I find is I think the comment you were sort of making about the acting, for example, I think sadly it's a bit of an ageist industry, whereby if you're not sort of established by the age of 30, you're kind of written off.
I told you I left the agency because I was too old for the acting. They were for youngsters, but absolutely, when I hit 30, there was hardly anything.
Well, there's this whole. I mean, there's so many things that the industry. They just. I think it comes down to they're not open to stuff. So they say, well, look, an actress up to this certain age, we can work with. But then when they get past this bit, they're no good. They won't be any good on screen.
But why though? Because I don't think people want. Because the public are quite happy to sit and see an older man on screen, but it's an older woman.
My point though is being though that they probably the actors probably become a lot more interesting past that age, because they have more life experience and they've been doing it for, this is an art form. It's, it's a craft. You have to learn your craft. You have to do it over and over, and people get more interesting as they go along.
But that's not reflected in the scripts.
And also that's not exclusive to, I think, actors. I actually think that even as a filmmaker, you end up getting judged similarly. And what is interesting is, the more experience you can bring to storytelling, which is what filmmaking is, then the better.
It is funny to think that back in the studio days in Hollywood, that most directors were in their 40s and 50s, and then comes the 70s, and then suddenly they're all in their 20s and 30s, and that they're still in that mindset. So they're always looking for what's the next thing, what's the hot next thing. What's the young hot shot? So
yes, I think that's very interesting. I read
Yeah.
a thing today that they were saying about the next young thing or something under 30. But I'm so with you on that. I think you're so right. It is storytelling. I can't imagine sort of just going straight from like doing your A levels to film school and then coming out and writing about the world and directing, and when you've got no life experience. I think that's actually why it's so important to don't just surround yourselves with people that are filmmakers. I mean, I can't think of, not including tonight, but I can't think of anything worse than sitting around just talking about films all night.
Right, I'm giving him a coat.
I
think that's our whole podcast, isn't it?
I mean, actually, that's my biggest inspiration: real people, real stories. Getting out there. I've got friends of all ages, all walks of life. I just love meeting people, and they're probably my biggest inspirations. And I think you need that. If all you're talking about is films that have already been made, I'm probably saying this because there's so many films that I haven't watched. People always say to me, "Have you seen this film?" Like, no.
Yeah, it's an ever-growing list. Yeah.
We need to use that tagline as the ad for this podcast, clearly. Oh, you don't want to listen to people sat around talking about films that have already been made. Go and tune into another podcast about something interesting to do with life. It's so good we can take the mickey out of ourselves. Yes.
I was just thinking though, sort of just going back to the subject of how the whole age thing and stuff. I think it just comes down to it's another selling point, isn't it? It's the teenage director of this film. There you go, teenage director. Or a film was made. When they started saying about how small the budget was, like with
made it for a tenner.
Yeah, yeah. There was that zombie film that they made for £100, even though if you add what everybody brought to the table for free, it wouldn't.
Well, interestingly, the chap that won the Academy Award this year as director for La La Land was actually, he's the youngest person to ever receive an Oscar as best director. So
yeah.
I guess the age is going down, but damn, that's going down as mine's going up. Damn it! But no, but yeah, it's.
I mean, it's just this weird thing where you don't know. I mean, you do the hard work. You get the film out there, and at the end of the day, you don't know, because for every success, there's 100 failures.
Yeah.
Oh, and the rest. Yeah, absolutely. But we do it because we love it, right? Let's be positive here. Hey. My Feral Heart was a labour of love, right? And it's now, getting some recognition.
Yeah.
I think that's something to be inspired
by.
Absolutely, and to strive for. Yeah. Absolutely.
It definitely hasn't put me off.
No.
That's for sure. I can't wait to do the next one.
Well, and also the other thing that's good is from the sounds of it, your other ideas, you've got some meaty and important subject matter again to sort of focus on with that.
And things that are really important to me as well.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be, I think, because directing is such a massive undertaking. I mean, I was trying to explain to someone once the other day about how, it literally is. You have to live and breathe it. It is your entire life and your obsession while you're working on that project. It's not something you can just literally switch on and off like a light switch. It's
And I don't think, not everybody really, quite often like people will say to me, I think even family members, so what do you actually do as the director then? Do you just sort of tell the actors where to stand? You can't really explain it.
No, it's a very hard job to define for people that aren't, in the industry or that haven't studied it. It's very hard to define, but it's such a difficult job, and a privilege if you can get to do it. If you can get paid to do it, I honestly believe those people it's a privilege to have that as a job.
Oh, absolutely.
And turn up and get paid every
And
day.
actually, anything when you think, we're sitting here moaning or whatever, but when you think of it in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it really is. At the end of the day, we're making films. Yes, they can sort of change maybe the way people see the world, but
but they're not changing the actual world.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
and I think that's really, really important. I think sometimes when we all get mixed up in all sorts of emotions when we're filming and dealing with arguing over the most, not talking about me individually, but just like arguing about the most petty things, which actually in the grand scheme of things are not important, and egos and all sorts.
It always seems to be at the time very important.
Oh yeah, at the moment it's like life and death, isn't it? It's so important. But
Who knew we were
actually,
going to get philosophical about all of
but
this?
when you take a step back, it's it's really not.
It's only a movie.
It's only
they
a
say.
movie.
Yes.
That's all, folks.
Well, you say that, but when I remember working at the cinema, and I remember one guy saying that he always treated every customer well, because that customer, that may be their first time going to see a film. And I think there's always films that touch people, and I think My Feral Heart is certainly one of those films. I mean, I think that's it's touched a lot of people, and I think it will have a life. I think it really will have a life.
That's the beautiful thing, isn't it, about film? And that, I mean, I love theatre, but
theatre's in the moment and then gone, whereas film...
and if
film
you've only got to take a train strike or a bit of snow, and people won't go to the theatre, but that is lovely to know that film is going to be there forever.
And one thing that was actually very rewarding about doing the Q&A last week was because so many people did ask so many good questions. I mean, that was the thing. I was there thinking, oh my God, what if this is, I can waffle on forever. But I thought, no, I want the audience to ask the questions, not me, because I've been to Q&As and I've seen moderators that do that, and it always annoys me. I think no. The interesting questions are from the people who have just sat here and watched it and experienced it for the first time, and we got some amazing questions. So
it's a really good audience.
Yeah, I don't know. I think moderating should be a new career path for you, Keith. I really enjoyed the Q&A you moderated for me for Blood and Roses, and the fact that you brought everybody in, was really good, because like the likes of Brendan, you could have left to the end because he did the special effects, and of course that's something that just happens when we're filming, and then his part was done. So you brought him in early on instead of maybe waiting till sort of once we got to the filming part. So
I like to be inclusive, but at the same time, what I don't need right now is yet another failed career. So, but no, I mean it's been great. I mean, one of the things that I love about doing these podcasts is the fact that we get to talk to some of the people we know that are involved in it, and it's
the people we
great
don't know,
and people we don't know. Even more so. No offense, but
I get that.
But it's really good that you're able to talk about this and that it has got a life out there, and this has been long overdue, because we did talk about it when we met with James, and it took a while, but I think now is the right time, simply because it's had those screenings now, and when we talked to James, it still hadn't had the premiere yet.
It hadn't.
I don't think so, had it? Or had it just had the premiere? It might have just had the premiere.
Might just had, yeah.
But,
I'm sure there had been at least one screening at the festival,
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens now. Watch this space.
Watch this space, indeed.
So where can people find out more about My Feral Heart?
Well, they can go onto the My Feral Heart website, which is www.myferalheart.co.uk. My website is janegull.com. There you go. You can find me on Twitter. I've been tweeting quite a lot recently.
Have you?
Yeah, it's quite easy to tweet, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. Do
No,
you know? I've never sent a tweet in my life, which
I don't know if anybody
probably
ever
I
reads
need
them,
to
but-
get with the program someday and do that. But yes. Watch this space. Yeah.
And Keith, where can we find your work?
Well, obviously not on Twitter. We've just established that. But I do have a YouTube channel. So if you went to YouTube and put in British Eyles, spelled Eyles, there are self-funded films on there that I've made for viewing if you're at all interested. And for other projects, just look me up on IMDb.
And as always, you can find my work at independentrunnings.com. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcast providers. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. And if you're on iTunes or Stitcher, please leave us a rating and a review. It all helps.
Please do, yes. So there you go. There was a bit of structure there at the very end, but it's been nice just to have a kind of a relaxed chat about the positives and the negatives of the industry and the thing that we're passionate about. And so, thank you, Jane.
Thanks for talking to me.
For letting us have tea and hobnobs while we do this.
And I just want to say congratulations on the film doing well, and
thank you.
I'm looking forward to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too.
We wish it well moving forward, and we thank you for listening to this podcast, and please join us for the next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.